6 people walked out of frame. None of them walked back in. One of them was caught on camera entering a building, but never on camera leaving it. The camera was working. The footage exists. Blackwell has it on his phone right now, standing in the parking lot where that building used to be. He plays it again, and again, and again, and the man on the escalator never comes back down. This is not a story about ghosts. This is a story about holes. Holes in the system that promised you the world is watched, mapped, indexed, and findable. 6 holes. 6 open case files. 6 families who still answer the phone the same way every time it rings, hoping it will be the call that ends the question. The call has not come. For one of them, it has not come for 50 years. You are about to meet 6 of them. A 3-year-old girl in a Portuguese resort, asleep in a ground floor bedroom while her parents ate dinner 50 meters away. A British aristocrat who killed the wrong woman in the dark and walked out of his own life that same night. An Italian physicist that Enrico Fermi called the smartest man he ever met, who bought a one-way ferry ticket and was never seen again. A 9-year-old child who left her house at 4 in the morning in the rain, walking down a highway in North Carolina. A young pilot over the Bass Strait whose final words on the radio were, "It is hovering and it is not an aircraft." And finally, the one Blackwell still cannot stop thinking about, the one with the camera, the medical student in Columbus, Ohio. We will go in order of how clean the disappearance was. The cleanest is last. Pay attention to a single detail across all 6 cases. Watch how the failure repeats itself. It is never the satellites. It is never the DNA. It is always something stupid and small. A door left unlocked. A bar with one camera pointed the wrong way. A radar operator on a coffee break. The world watches everything now, and somehow, 6 frames are still empty. Madeleine Beth McCann was 3 years and 11 months old. Her parents were eating dinner 50 meters away when she stopped existing. The date was the 3rd of May, 2007. The place was the Ocean Club Resort in Praia de Luz on the Algarve coast of Portugal. Apartment 5A, ground floor. Her father, Jerry McCann, a cardiologist from Leicestershire. Her mother, Kate McCann, a general practitioner. Madeleine was sleeping in the children's bedroom with her 2-year-old twin siblings, Sean and Amelie. The parents were at a tapas restaurant on the resort grounds. They had a system. One of them would walk back to the apartment every half hour to check on the children. They were experienced parents. They were doctors. They were not careless people. That is what made what happened next so hard to explain to themselves for the rest of their lives. At 9 o'clock in the evening, Jerry McCann walked back to the apartment. He looked in on the children. All 3 were asleep. He went back to dinner. At 9:15, a friend of theirs, Matthew Oldfield, walked past the apartment on his way to check on his own children, and he listened at the McCann window. He heard nothing. At 9:30, a 3rd member of the dinner group did the same. At 10 o'clock, Kate McCann walked back to the apartment to do her check. The bedroom door was open wider than they had left it. The window was open. The shutter on the outside of the window was raised. The bed where Madeleine had been sleeping was empty. The covers were pulled back as if someone had lifted her out of them. The twins were still asleep, undisturbed, in the same room. Kate McCann ran out of the apartment screaming. The first sentence she ever said about the disappearance, the sentence she said running into the tapas restaurant, the sentence that has been quoted in every newspaper and inquiry and book ever written about this case was, "They have taken her." The Portuguese police, the Policia Judiciaria, did not arrive at the scene for over an hour. By the time they did, the apartment had been entered and contaminated by friends, hotel staff, other parents, and the McCanns themselves. There were no perimeter ropes, no fingerprint dust on the window for hours, no roadblocks set up around Praia de Luz that night. The first formal alert to border posts was issued the following morning. By then, anyone who had taken Madeleine out of that apartment had already had 10 hours of darkness and an open road in any direction. Spain was less than 200 kilometers away. The ferry to Morocco from Algeciras was reachable inside a single night's drive. The investigation that followed became the largest and most expensive missing child investigation in modern European history. The British Metropolitan Police created a dedicated unit, Operation Grange, which still exists. The Portuguese investigation was opened, closed, reopened, closed again, and reopened again. The German Federal Police, the BKA, ran their own investigation in parallel from 2019 onward. The case file in Portugal carries the reference number 201/07.0 GALGS, filed at the Portimão Department of Criminal Investigation. For years, suspicion swung wildly. The McCann parents themselves were named as official suspects, what the Portuguese system calls arguidos, in 2007. They were cleared in 2008. A Portuguese man named Robert Murat, who lived near the resort and offered to translate for police, was named, investigated, cleared. Sightings of Madeleine were reported from Belgium, Morocco, France, Spain, India, Australia, Brazil. Each one was followed up. Each one was a wrong child, or a hoax, or a face that looked similar in a grainy photograph. None of them were her. Then in June 2020, the Bundeskriminalamt, the German federal police, held a press conference in Wiesbaden. They announced that they had identified a prime suspect. A German national born in 1976 with a criminal record dating back decades, including convictions for offenses against children. His name was Christian Brückner. He had been living in the Algarve at the time Madeleine disappeared. His mobile phone had been pinged in Praia de Luz on the night of the 3rd of May, 2007. He had been driving a Volkswagen camper van and a Jaguar in the area. He had told an acquaintance in a recorded conversation in a German bar years later that he knew what had happened to the British girl in Portugal. The acquaintance went to police. Brückner was already in prison in Germany on an unrelated conviction. The German prosecutors said publicly that they were treating the case as a homicide. They said they believed Madeleine McCann was dead. They said they did not yet have enough evidence to charge Brückner with her killing. As of the date this is being recorded, that has not changed. He has not been charged with anything related to Madeleine. Her body has never been found. The case in Portugal is still officially open. 18 years. The most photographed missing child in history. Pictures of her face on every newspaper in Europe, on the side of buses, in airports, on milk cartons, on the Vatican Square once when Pope Benedict XVI received her parents in private audience. A face the entire continent could pick out of a crowd. And not one verified frame, not one photograph, not one piece of footage of where she went after the bedroom window was opened in apartment 5A. The irony is the resort. Praia de Luz is a holiday town. It is full of cameras now. Kate McCann still wears a small bracelet on her right wrist with the date Madeleine disappeared. Jerry McCann has said in interviews that the worst part is not the not knowing. The worst part is that on every birthday, on every Christmas, on every May the 3rd, they age her in their minds. They picture what she would look like at 4, at 7, at 10, at 15, at 20. The age progression photographs released by police are, in the end, only guesses. The real Madeleine, if she still exists somewhere, is a person no one in her family has ever seen. Christian Brückner remains in prison in Germany. He will be eligible for release in the next few years. The German prosecutors have said openly that if he is freed before they can charge him, the chance of solving the case may go with him. 2 countries, 3 police forces, 18 years, and the answer is still sitting in a single human brain, behind a single human face that refuses to open its mouth. The window was left open. The shutter was raised. A child was lifted out of a bed. A continent has been looking for her ever since, and no one has seen her again. Richard John Bingham, the 7th Earl of Lucan, killed the wrong woman in the dark and disappeared into the British class system. The night was the 7th of November, 1974. The address was 46 Lower Belgrave Street in the Belgravia district of central London, one of the most expensive postcodes in the world then and now. The house belonged to Lady Veronica Lucan, the Earl's estranged wife. They were in the middle of a bitter custody dispute over their 3 children. Lord Lucan had lost the previous court rounds. He had lost custody. He had lost most of his money to gambling. He owed creditors a sum that, in modern values, would be measured in millions. He was a man with one obvious problem and one obvious solution. The household had a live-in nanny. Her name was Sandra Eleanor Rivet. She was 29 years old. She had been working for the Lucan family for 10 weeks. On Thursday evenings, her usual night off, she would normally have been out of the house. On this particular Thursday, she changed her plans. She decided to stay in. She offered to make a cup of tea for Lady Lucan, who was upstairs watching television with the children. To make the tea, Sandra Rivet went down into the basement kitchen. The light bulb in the basement stairwell had been removed earlier that day. Though no one in the household admitted to having removed it. The stairwell was almost completely dark. As Sandra Rivet walked down the steps, someone struck her from behind with a length of lead piping wrapped in surgical tape. She died from the blows. Her body was placed inside a canvas United States mail sack and left at the bottom of the stairs. When Sandra Rivet did not return with the tea, Lady Lucan went downstairs to look for her. She called her nanny's name. She heard a sound from the basement. She started to descend. A man came up the stairs and attacked her in the same way. She fought back. She managed to identify the man, despite the darkness, as her husband. She bit his fingers. She struck at him. He stopped attacking her. According to her later testimony to police and to the inquest, he then admitted that he had killed Sandra Rivet by mistake. He had been waiting for his wife. He had not realized the nanny was in the house that evening. He had killed the wrong woman. Lady Lucan, bleeding from the head, ran from the house. She made it to the Plumber's Arms public house on the corner of Lower Belgrave Street. She collapsed in the doorway. She told the people inside that her nanny had been murdered and her husband had tried to murder her. The police were called. They arrived at Lower Belgrave Street within minutes. They found the body of Sandra Rivet in the mail sack in the basement. They found a length of blood-stained lead piping. They found Lord Lucan's spectacles, his car keys, and his checkbook in the house. Lord Lucan himself was not in the house. He was already gone. What he did in the next few hours has been pieced together from telephone calls, witness statements, and a single abandoned car. Around 10 in the evening, he telephoned his mother, the Dowager Countess of Lucan, and told her there had been a, quote, zero at the house in Lower Belgrave Street. He asked her to collect the children. He did not tell her he had killed anyone. He then drove to the home of his friends Ian and Susan Maxwell Scott in Uckfield, East Sussex, about 40 miles south of London. He arrived shortly before midnight in a borrowed Ford Corsair. He was unshaven and shaken. He told Susan Maxwell Scott a version of events in which he had walked past the house, seen a man attacking his wife through the basement window, run inside to help, slipped in a pool of blood, and been mistaken by his wife for the attacker. He wrote 2 letters at the Maxwell Scott house, both addressed to a friend, William Shand Kidd, in which he said he intended to quote one and ask that the children be looked after. He left Uckfield around 1:15 in the morning of the 8th of November, 1974. The Ford Corsair was found 3 days later, on the 10th of November, abandoned in the port town of New Haven on the south coast. The keys were in the ignition. Inside the boot was another length of bandaged lead piping, almost identical to the one used to kill Sandra Rivet. There was blood inside the car. The blood matched both Sandra Rivet's blood group and Lady Lucan's blood group. From that moment, no verified sighting of Lord Lucan has ever been confirmed by any law enforcement agency anywhere in the world. The inquest into Sandra Rivet's death was held at Westminster Coroner's Court in June 1975. The jury delivered a verdict of murder by Lord Lucan. It was the last time in English legal history that a coroner's jury was permitted to formally name a murderer. The law was changed shortly afterwards. Lord Lucan, in absentia, became the only Earl of the United Kingdom in modern times to be officially declared a murderer. He has never stood trial. He has never been arrested. He has, in the 50 years since, been cited more than 70 times. In Mozambique, working as a beach bartender. In Goa, living as a hippie under the name Barry Halpin, until that man was identified as a different missing person entirely. In Australia, in New Zealand, in Botswana, in Gabon. There were rumors that wealthy gambling friends from his Mayfair circle, the Claremont set, had spirited him out of the country on a private aircraft from Lydd Airport on the night of the disappearance. There were other rumors that he had walked into the English Channel from the cliffs at New Haven and ended his own life. None of these theories was ever proven. His family lived in legal limbo for 42 years. Without a body and without a formal declaration of death, his estate could not be settled, his title could not pass, his life insurance could not be paid. In 2016, the High Court of England and Wales finally issued a declaration of presumed death under the Presumption of Death Act of 2013. The order was dated the 3rd of February, 2016. His son, George Bingham, became the 8th Earl of Lucan. The lead piping, the blood-stained corsair, and the empty title were all that remained. The irony of Lord Lucan is the class he came from. Every advantage of birth, education, money, and connection was given to him, and what they bought him in the end was a single skill no working-class fugitive in 1974 could have managed: the ability to disappear completely, with help, and to take that help to its grave. The Mayfair friends who may have helped him are now mostly dead. James Goldsmith, dead. John Aspinall, dead. Dominic Elwes, dead by his own hand a year after the murder. The witnesses are gone. The secret, if there was one, went with them. An aristocrat protected by his class, until the class itself died around him. And on a basement floor in Belgravia 50 years ago, a 29-year-old nanny lay dead in a mail sack because the man who killed her could not see her face in the dark. Ettore Majorana was the smartest physicist of his generation. Then he bought a one-way ferry ticket and erased himself. He was born in Catania, Sicily, on the 5th of August, 1906, into a wealthy and intellectually formidable family. His uncle was Quirino Majorana, an experimental physicist of national reputation. By the age of 4, Ettore could perform mental arithmetic that astonished adults. By his early 20s, he was a member of the legendary group of young Italian physicists at the Royal University of Rome known as the Via Panisperna Boys, working under Enrico Fermi himself. Fermi was not a man given to superlatives about other people. He once told a colleague, on the record, that there were several categories of scientists in the world. Most were ordinary, some were good. A few were of the first rank, capable of important discoveries fundamental to the development of science. But, he said, there existed a category beyond all of these: geniuses like Galileo and Newton. Ettore Majorana, Fermi said, was one of those. In 1932, Majorana was the first physicist to correctly interpret the experimental results of the Joliot-Curies in Paris, and to predict the existence of a new neutral particle inside the atomic nucleus. He told his colleagues in Rome. He did not publish. A few weeks later, James Chadwick in England published the discovery of the neutron and won the Nobel Prize. Majorana did not seem to mind. He thought publication was a vulgar concern. In 1937, he published a single paper, his last and most famous, proposing what is now called the Majorana fermion. It is a particle that is its own antiparticle. 88 years later, physicists are still arguing about whether Majorana fermions exist as real particles in nature. Some experimental laboratories claim to have observed them. Others claim those observations are wrong. The mathematics he wrote down in that paper is taught in every advanced quantum physics course in the world. In late 1937, at the age of 31, he accepted a chair in theoretical physics at the University of Naples. He was paid handsomely, He had no obvious reason to be unhappy. His colleagues noticed that he had become withdrawn. He stopped attending faculty meetings. He gave his lectures and went home. He stopped seeing friends. On the 25th of March, 1938, Ettore Majorana withdrew all the money from his bank account. He took his passport. He went to the port of Naples. He bought a ticket on the overnight ferry to Palermo, Sicily. Before boarding, he wrote 2 letters. One was addressed to his family. One was addressed to Antonio Corelli, the director of the Naples Physics Institute. To Corelli, he wrote that he had taken a decision that had become inevitable, that there was not a grain of selfishness in it, but that he realized the trouble his sudden disappearance would cause. He asked his colleague to remember him to those who had appreciated him. He boarded the ferry. The crossing from Naples to Palermo takes about 10 hours overnight. At some point during that night, between Naples and Palermo, Ettore Majorana ceased to be a person anyone could find again. The next day, the 26th of March, Corelli received a telegram from Palermo. Majorana had sent it himself. It said, in essence, "Do not be alarmed. The letter I sent you may have alarmed you, but please ignore it." He then sent a second letter, also from Palermo, saying he had changed his mind, that he intended to return to Naples, but that he would prefer to teach less. A few days later, the ferry company confirmed that a man matching Majorana's description had bought a return ticket from Palermo back to Naples. He boarded the ferry going back. He never arrived in Naples. Or he did arrive and walked off the ship and went somewhere else. The official records become contradictory at this point. Some witnesses claimed to have seen him in Naples. Others insisted he had never disembarked. His family, when alerted, conducted a frantic search. His brother Salvatore organized private investigations that ran for years. The most popular theory, advanced for decades, was that Majorana had taken his own life by jumping overboard between Palermo and Naples. The Italian police investigated and found no body, no clothing, no witnesses. The second theory was that he had retreated to a religious life. He was known to have been deeply troubled in the months before his disappearance, and he had visited monasteries, including the Carthusian monastery at Serra San Bruno in Calabria. The monks there, when asked, said no man matching Majorana's description had ever taken vows under their roof, or if he had, the seal of the order would not permit them to say so. The third theory was that Majorana, who in the months before his disappearance had been working on calculations that some historians believe touched on the practical possibilities of nuclear fission, had foreseen the military applications of his own science, and had chosen to remove himself from a world that was about to misuse his work. For decades, the case sat as one of the great mysteries of 20th century physics. Then, in 2008, the writer Leonardo Sciascia's earlier book on the case was overtaken by something more concrete. A witness came forward in Italy. He claimed to have known Majorana personally in Venezuela in the 1950s. He produced photographs. In 2015, the Procura della Repubblica di Roma, the prosecutor's office of Rome, formally examined the evidence. They released a photograph dated 1955, taken in Venezuela, of a man calling himself Mr. Beanie. The photograph was analyzed by the RIS, the Carabinieri's Scientific Investigation Unit. They concluded that the facial measurements of the man in the photograph matched those of Ettore Majorana, with a degree of confidence sufficient to establish identity. On the 4th of February 2015, the Rome prosecutor's office officially closed the case. Their conclusion: Ettore Majorana had not died in 1938. He had voluntarily relocated to Venezuela. He had lived there in obscurity for at least 17 years after his disappearance, possibly much longer. The case file was closed not as homicide, not as suicide, but as voluntary disappearance. The irony of Majorana is the cleanness of it. A man whose mind was capable of describing particles that are their own antiparticles, particles that exist on the borderline of being and not being, performed on himself the same trick he had described in mathematics. He was, and then he was not. And somewhere in South America, in a small town no one remembered the name of, a quiet man with a thick accent and an unexplainable knowledge of theoretical physics lived under a borrowed name and read the newspapers and said nothing to anyone about what he had once been. A man who could split atoms vanished cleaner than any fugitive in this gallery. The ferry to Palermo still runs. It still leaves Naples in the evening. It still arrives in Sicily at dawn. And the seat where Ettore Majorana sat that night in March 1938 has been refilled 10,000 times by 10,000 other people, none of whom were him. Asha Jaquilla Degree was 9 years old, 4 in the morning, walking down a North Carolina highway in the rain. She was born on the 5th of August, 1990, in Shelby, Cleveland County, North Carolina. Her parents, Harold and Aquila Degree, were a working-class African-American family. Harold worked at a textile mill. Aquila worked at a factory. Asha had one older brother, O'Brien. The family lived in a small house on Oakcrest Drive on the edge of Shelby, a town of about 20,000 people in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. By every account from teachers, family, and neighbors, Asha was a careful child. She was afraid of the dark. She was afraid of dogs. She did not talk to strangers. She had never run away. She had never been disciplined for breaking curfew. She slept in a bedroom she shared with her brother, in a house her parents kept locked at night. On the night of the 13th of February, 2000, a Sunday, the family went to bed at the usual time. A storm was passing over Cleveland County. There were tornado warnings on the local news. Around 2:30 in the morning of the 14th, Harold Degree, the father, looked in on his children. Both were asleep in their beds. He went back to his own room. At around 4 in the morning, in the rain, in the dark, in temperatures hovering just above freezing, Asha Degree got out of bed. She took a backpack. She placed inside it a number of items: clothes, hair products, pencils, a Mickey Mouse doll, and a copy of the children's book, The Best Bug to Be. She left the house. She walked away from Oakcrest Drive in the direction of Highway 18. At 4:15 in the morning, a passing motorist named Roy Sperling saw a small black girl walking south on the shoulder of Highway 18. He thought it was strange enough to slow down. As he slowed, the girl turned around and saw his car. She ran into a wooded area beside the highway. Sperling kept driving. He told himself he must have been mistaken about her age. He went home. He thought about it. The next day, when he heard on the radio that a 9-year-old girl was missing from Shelby, he went to the police. A second motorist, a truck driver named Richard Singletary, came forward with the same account. He had also seen a small girl walking south on Highway 18 in the rain that night, a few minutes earlier than Sperling. He had also kept driving. He had also thought about it. He had also not stopped. The Degrees discovered Asha was missing at 6:30 on the morning of the 14th, when Aquila went to wake the children for school. Asha was gone. Her bed was made. The front door of the house was unlocked. There was no sign of forced entry. The police were called immediately. Within hours, every law enforcement agency in Cleveland County was searching the area. The FBI Charlotte Field Office took the case the same week. The case file is recorded as 7CE 50886. For days, hundreds of volunteers walked the woods and fields along Highway 18. Helicopters with thermal cameras flew the corridor. Search dogs traced her route from the house to the highway, then lost the scent. On the 17th of February, 3 days after she disappeared, her green Tweety Bird backpack was found by a road crew, sealed inside 2 black plastic garbage bags in the woods beside Highway 18, 26 miles from her home. Inside the backpack were her clothes, the Mickey Mouse doll, the book. There was no Asha. For 24 years, the case went cold. The FBI offered increasing rewards. The Degrees gave press conferences every February the 14th. Aquila Degree, the mother, said in interview after interview that her daughter had not run away, that something had drawn her out of that house, that a 9-year-old afraid of the dark and afraid of dogs and afraid of strangers does not, of her own free will, walk 26 miles down a highway in a thunderstorm at 4 in the morning. In 2001, an FBI behavioral analyst suggested in an internal memo that Asha may have been lured from the house by someone she knew, or by someone communicating with her in a way the family had not detected. There were no mobile phones in the house, no internet account, no clear vector of contact. The mystery was, why did she leave? In August 2016, the FBI announced they had recovered DNA evidence from items in the backpack that did not belong to Asha or her family. They could not yet match it to a suspect. They asked the public for help. They asked specifically about a green 1970s Lincoln or Ford Thunderbird that had been seen near Highway 18 that night. On the 1st of August 2024, the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office and the FBI made an announcement at a joint press conference in Shelby. They had arrested a man named Roy Lee Wilson, 58 years old, a longtime resident of the area. He was charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and felony child abuse in the death of Aisha Degree. The investigators stated that they had recovered DNA evidence linking Wilson to items found in the backpack and to the storage location where the backpack had been hidden before being moved into the woods. They stated that they had reason to believe that Aisha was no longer alive. They stated that they had not, as of the date of the press conference, recovered her body. That status has not changed. Roy Lee Wilson remains in custody, awaiting trial. The Degree family has, after 24 years, a name. They do not have a grave. The irony of Aisha Degree is that the system finally worked, decades too late. And only halfway. They have the man, they believe they have the killer, they have the DNA, they have the case number, they do not have the child. Aquila Degree still keeps Aisha's bedroom on Oakcrest Drive the way it was on the night of the 13th of February, 2000. The bed is made, the book is on the shelf, the space where her daughter slept is empty, and the answer to the only question that ever mattered, where did she go, and what happened to her after she ran into the trees on Highway 18, has not yet been spoken aloud in any courtroom. Frederick Valentich was 20 years old. His final transmission to ground control, before the radio went to static and he disappeared forever, was, "It is hovering, and it is not an aircraft." He was born on the 9th of June, 1958, in Melbourne, Australia, to an Italian immigrant family. From childhood, he wanted to be a pilot. He applied to the Royal Australian Air Force. He was rejected, twice, for inadequate educational qualifications. He joined the Air Training Corps as a cadet. He worked towards a civilian commercial pilot's license at his own expense. By 1978, he had accumulated about 150 flying hours, had a Class 4 instrument rating, and was permitted to fly at night under visual flight rules. On the evening of Saturday, the 21st of October, 1978, he filed a flight plan with the Department of Transport. He intended to fly a single-engine Cessna 182L, registration Victor Hotel, Delta Sierra Juliet, from Moorabbin Airport in Melbourne, across the Bass Strait to King Island. The Bass Strait is the stretch of ocean between mainland Australia and the island of Tasmania. The flight is short, about 125 miles. The weather that evening was clear. Visibility was good. There was no military exercise scheduled in the airspace. Nothing about the flight was unusual. He took off from Moorabbin at 6:19 in the evening local time. He climbed to 4,500 feet. He leveled off and tracked southwest over the coast, over Cape Otway Lighthouse, out over the Bass Strait. He made routine radio contact with Melbourne Flight Service Unit, operated by a controller named Steve Roby. The transcript of their conversation that night exists in full. It is one of the most studied radio transcripts in aviation history. At 7:06 in the evening, Valentich called Melbourne. He asked if there was any known traffic in his vicinity below 5,000 feet. Roby checked. He told Valentich there was no known traffic. Valentich said, seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000. Roby asked him to identify the aircraft. Valentich said he could not. He said it had 4 bright landing lights. He said the lights were too bright to be normal navigation lights. The aircraft, he said, had just passed over him at high speed, perhaps 1,000 feet above. He could not see its silhouette. A minute later, he reported the aircraft was approaching him from the east. He said it seemed to be playing some sort of game with him. It was orbiting above him. Roby, on the ground in Melbourne, asked again if Valentich could identify the type of aircraft. Valentich said, "It isn't an aircraft. It is." There was a pause. Then he said, "It is flying past. It is a long shape. I cannot identify more than that. It is coming for me right now." Roby asked him how large the object was. Valentich said, "It seems to be stationary. What I am doing right now is orbiting, and the thing is just orbiting on top of me also. It has a green light and sort of metallic. It is shiny on the outside." Then, at 7:12 and 28 seconds in the evening, Frederick Valentich said his final words on the radio. The first part of those words, which are the words quoted at the start of this portrait, were, "It is hovering, and it is not an aircraft." He then said, "Melbourne, my engine is rough idling. I have got it set at 2324, and the thing is coughing." Roby asked him what his intentions were. Valentich said, "My intentions are, to go to King Island. Melbourne, that strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. It is hovering, and it is not an aircraft." That was the last sentence. The next sound on the recording, captured by Melbourne Flight Service Unit, has been described in the official Australian Transport Safety Bureau report as a metallic, scraping noise of approximately 17 seconds duration. It is not the sound of a transmitter being switched off. It is not the sound of a microphone being released. It is a continuous, mechanical, unidentifiable sound. After 17 seconds, the radio went silent. A search and rescue operation began within the hour. The Royal Australian Air Force, the Royal Australian Navy, civilian aircraft, and Royal Australian Navy ships swept the Bass Strait for 4 days. They covered more than 1,000 square miles of ocean and coastline. They found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no flight bag, no pieces of fiberglass or metal, no body. The Cessna 182L is a small aircraft, but it carries roughly 46 gallons of fuel. A crash on water typically leaves an oil slick visible for hours or days. There was none. The official investigation, conducted by what is now the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, was filed under report number 78/3024. It was issued in 1982, 4 years later. Its conclusion was a single phrase: "The reason for the disappearance of the aircraft has not been determined." For the next 40 years, the case was studied, picked over, and explained in dozens of competing ways. One hypothesis: Valentich was disoriented and flew upside down, mistaking the lights of his own reflection in the water for an aircraft above him, and crashed when he became spatially confused. The Cessna 182L cannot remain inverted under power for longer than a few seconds, which weakens this theory. A second hypothesis: he staged his own disappearance for personal reasons. There was no evidence of mental distress, no debt, no romantic crisis, no preparation for a new life. A third hypothesis: he was struck by a meteorite or by classified military debris. No corresponding event was logged. A fourth hypothesis, the one his family and a not small number of investigators continue to hold, is that whatever Frederick Valentich was describing on the radio was real, was external to his aircraft, and was the cause of his disappearance. In 1983, a small piece of an aircraft engine cowling, consistent in age and type with a Cessna 182, washed ashore on Flinders Island in the Bass Strait. It was tested. The serial numbers had been worn away by saltwater. The Australian authorities concluded that the cowling could be from Valentich's aircraft. They could not prove that it was. The piece sits in an evidence room. It is the only physical object that has ever been recovered from any search related to Frederick Valentich, and it cannot be confirmed as his. The irony of Valentich is the flight plan. He filed it. He told the system where he was going. He spoke to ground control the entire time. He did everything a pilot is supposed to do to be findable. King Island, his destination, never received him. Melbourne, his origin, never recovered him. He filed a flight plan to Tasmania. Tasmania never received him. The Bass Strait kept whatever it took that night, and the only thing it ever returned was a piece of metal too worn to identify. The radio recording still exists. You can listen to it. The last 17 seconds, the metallic scraping, are still played by aviation researchers, by ufologists, by skeptics, by acoustic engineers. None of them agree on what made the sound. 47 years later, the file is still tagged in Australian aviation records with the same 3 words: cause unknown. Brian Randall Schaefer was 27 years old. The camera caught him going up. The camera never caught him coming down. He was born on the 11th of February, 1979, in Pickerington, Ohio. He was the younger of 2 sons of Randy and Renee Schaefer. He played guitar. He was funny in the way quiet people are funny, in short bursts that surprised people. He was, by every account from every person who knew him, a stable, kind, focused young man. He graduated from Ohio State University. He was accepted into the Ohio State University College of Medicine. By 2006, he was a second-year medical student, on track to become a doctor. The year was hard. His mother, Renee, had died of cancer in March of 2006. Less than a month before what would happen in Columbus. He was grieving, he was tired. His father later said in interviews that Brian had been holding everything together for the family, that he had been the one comforting his older brother, comforting his father, going back to medical school after the funeral, and not missing class. On Friday, the 31st of March 2006, Brian Schaefer finished his last final exam of the semester. He was about to begin a week of spring break. He had a plane ticket booked with his girlfriend Alexis Wagoner to fly to Miami the following day. That night, he and a close friend, William __quote_4__ Florence, decided to go out into the short North District of Columbus to celebrate the end of finals. They started drinking at a bar called the Brewery District. They moved to another bar, the Char Bar. By midnight on the 31st, moving into the early hours of Saturday the 1st of April, they had arrived at their final stop of the evening, a bar at the corner of North High Street and West Lane Avenue, on the second floor of a building called the South Campus Gateway. The bar was called the Ugly Tuna Saloona. The Ugly Tuna had a single main entrance. Customers entered the building at street level, took an escalator up to the second floor, and arrived in the bar. The same escalator was the only way out. There was a back service door, used by staff for deliveries, locked from the outside, alarmed. There was a fire exit to a stairwell. The stairwell led down to a side door, which was, on that night and every night, monitored by a security camera on the outside of the building. Brian Schaefer entered the Ugly Tuna with Clint Florence at approximately 1 in the morning. Inside the bar, they met 2 women they had not previously known, who later spoke to police. Brian called his girlfriend Alexis around 2 in the morning. He left her a voicemail. He sounded happy. He told her he loved her. He told her he was looking forward to Miami. The next part is documented frame by frame on a security camera mounted at the top of the entrance escalator. At 1:55 in the morning on Saturday the 1st of April 2006, Brian Schaefer is seen on the security footage standing at the top of the escalator. He is wearing a green hooded sweatshirt and jeans. He is talking to 2 women. He turns and walks back into the interior of the Ugly Tuna Saloona. The camera continues to record. The camera is functional. It is positioned to capture every person who enters or exits the bar by the only public entrance and exit. Brian Schaefer never appears on the camera again. The bar closed at 2:30 in the morning. The escalator was switched into reverse, becoming the down escalator, to allow patrons to leave. Roughly 200 people exited the Ugly Tuna in the half hour following last call. Every one of them is captured on the camera. Brian Schaefer is not among them. When the bar closed, the staff conducted a standard sweep. The bathrooms were checked. The kitchen was checked. The walk-in coolers were checked. The back service door was confirmed locked and alarmed. The fire stairwell was checked, and the side door at the bottom of the stairwell was monitored by the external security camera, which also recorded no one matching Brian Schaefer's description leaving by that route. The bar was empty. The lights were turned off. The doors were locked. Brian Schaefer was not inside, and he was not on any camera leaving. Clint Florence, his friend, told police he had been separated from Brian inside the bar in the last half hour. He had assumed Brian had gone home in a taxi. He had taken a taxi himself. The two women said Brian had spoken to them briefly and then walked away into the bar. None of the staff remembered seeing him after the 1:55 timestamp on the escalator camera. The next day, Saturday, the 1st of April, Brian did not arrive at the airport for his flight to Miami. Alexis Wagoner went without him, assuming there had been a misunderstanding, then began calling. By Sunday, she was alarmed. By Monday, she had reported him missing. The Columbus Division of Police opened the case under file number 06-275054. The FBI Cincinnati field office subsequently opened parallel file 06-CFM-12. Both files remain officially open as of the date of this recording. The investigation in the months that followed was unusually thorough. Police interviewed every staff member who had worked the Ugly Tuna that night. They interviewed every patron they could trace through credit card records. They subpoenaed cell phone records, including Brian's. His phone last pinged a tower in the South Campus Gateway area around 2 in the morning of the 1st of April, then went silent. It has never connected to a cell tower again. Police searched Brian's apartment. His passport was there. His wallet was there. His clothes, his medical school textbooks, his car keys, all there. His car was still parked where he had left it on the 31st. His bank account has not been touched since the night of the disappearance. No withdrawal, no debit, no transfer in 19 years. Cadaver dogs were brought into the Ugly Tuna and the surrounding building. They alerted on nothing. The construction site adjacent to the bar, which had been actively under work that week with open dumpsters and accessible foundation pits, was searched. Nothing. The dumpsters from the construction site had been emptied to a landfill on the morning of the 1st of April before police were aware of the case. The landfill in Franklin County was searched. Nothing was found. For 19 years, no piece of physical evidence connecting to Brian Schaefer has been recovered. No body, no clothing, no DNA trace outside the locations he is known to have visited. His credit cards have not been used. His social security number has not been entered into any employment record, hospital admission, or government database since the morning of the 1st of April, 2006. Persons of interest have been examined. Clint Florence, the friend, was named as an uncooperative witness by Columbus police, who publicly stated he had refused to take a polygraph test. He has never been charged with anything. He has consistently maintained that he separated from Brian inside the bar and went home. There is no physical evidence linking him or anyone else to a crime against Brian Schaefer, because there is no physical evidence of a crime at all. In 2017, the building that housed the Ugly Tuna Saloona was renovated and the bar was demolished. The escalator on which Brian Schaefer was last filmed was removed and scrapped. The space where he was last seen no longer physically exists. The security tape itself, the one with the 1:55 timestamp, is preserved in evidence at the Columbus Division of Police. It has been digitized. Investigators have re-examined it many times, frame by frame, looking for anything they missed in 2006. There is nothing to find. The footage shows what it shows. A man in a green hoodie walks back into a bar. The bar empties out. He does not come with it. Blackwell stands in the parking lot where the South Campus Gateway building's bar entrance used to be. He has the footage on his phone. He plays it. The escalator goes up. Brian Schaefer turns. He walks back into the bar. The footage ends. Blackwell plays it again. The escalator goes up. Brian Schaefer turns. He walks back into the bar. There is nowhere for him to have gone. There is nothing for him to have done. There is no door he could have used that was not watched. There is no window he could have opened that did not look down onto a street that had its own cameras. There are 200 witnesses in the bar that night, and not one of them remembers seeing him leave. The irony of Brian Schaefer is that this case, of all 6 in this gallery, is the one that the modern surveillance state should have solved on the first morning. There was a camera. The camera worked. The footage was preserved within hours. The witnesses were available. The cell phone records were obtainable. The body, if there was one, should have been somewhere within walking distance of a single building. Every condition for a clean solution was present. The case is open. FBI file 06-CFM-12. Columbus Division of Police, file 06-275054. Renee Schaefer's grave in Central Ohio has, beside it, a marker for her son. There is no body beneath it. Randy Schaefer, the father, died in 2008, 2 years after his son disappeared. He never knew what had happened. The brother is still alive. The girlfriend has moved on, married, built a life. Brian, if he is anywhere, is not anywhere anyone can reach. 6 people, 6 open files. The world watches everything now, and somehow, 6 frames are still empty. A bedroom window in Praia de Luz that someone opened from the outside, and no camera in the resort caught who. A Ford Corsair abandoned in New Haven with blood-stained piping in the boot, and no witness on the docks who saw a man in a dinner jacket buy a one-way ticket. A ferry from Naples to Palermo, where a physicist who could describe particles that are their own opposites turned himself into one. A 9-year-old child running into a tree line beside Highway 18 in the rain, and a backpack 26 miles away in 2 black plastic bags. A pilot over the Bass Strait, transmitting clearly until the last 17 seconds of metallic scraping, and a sea that has kept his Cessna for 47 years. A medical student on an escalator in Columbus, Ohio, going up at 1:55 in the morning, and a building that no longer exists where he never came down. The lesson is the same in every file. The system that watches everything has gaps in it that you cannot see until someone you love walks through one. The cameras are not pointed where they need to be pointed. The reports are filed an hour too late. The radar operator looks down at the wrong moment. The bar has one exit and a dumpster being emptied at dawn. The systems are built to find the average person. The 6 in this gallery were not, in the moment they vanished, average. They were anomalies. And the system, which is designed for averages, did what systems do with anomalies. It logged them. It searched for them. It did not find them. Blackwell closes the footage on his phone. He puts the phone in his pocket. He walks across the parking lot in Columbus towards the next address on his list. There are 19 episodes behind him. There is 1 episode left in the season. The next case is not in this video. The screen goes dark.